I want to ask you something, and I want you to actually sit with it for a second before you answer. When was the last time you cried? Not teared up at a movie where nobody could see you. I mean, actually cried. Let something out. Felt something so deeply that your body had to respond to it. For a lot of men watching this, the answer is I don't remember. Maybe years, maybe longer, maybe never as an adult. And here's what I want to connect that to today, because I don't think that's a coincidence. I think there's a direct line between the emotions you've never been allowed to feel and the anger that keeps coming out sideways. Your anger isn't the problem, it's the guard dog. And today we're going to talk about what it's been guarding. I spent the better part of my life thinking I had an anger problem. That was the label I put on it. That was the label other people put on it. You've got a temper. You need to control yourself. You need to calm down. As if anger was the thing that needed fixing and everything else was fine. So I tried to fix the anger. I tried breathing through it. I tried removing myself from situations. I tried talking myself down. And sometimes it worked. For a while. Until it didn't. And then one day, and this was well into my journey of trying to figure this out, somebody asked me a question that I wasn't prepared for. They asked me, when you snapped at that person, what were you actually feeling before the anger showed up? I sat there and I thought about it. And what came up wasn't anger at all. It was helplessness. It was a feeling of being completely out of control of a situation and not knowing what to do with that. It was the feeling of being invisible, of working so hard and feeling like nobody saw it, of being scared, genuinely scared, about whether I was doing enough, being enough, whether I was failing the people who were counting on me. None of that ever came out as fear, helplessness, or sadness. It came out as anger, because anger was the only language that I had been given permission to use. Here's what I want you to understand about how this works. When you were growing up, most of us, men especially, we received a very clear message about which emotions were acceptable and which ones weren't. Anger was acceptable. Anger looked strong. Anger looked like we were in control, like you had standards, like you weren't going to be pushed around. Nobody pulled you aside as a kid and said, hey, that anger isn't great. They might have told you to manage it, to dial it back, to not take it so far. But the anger itself was never the problem in the eyes of the world around you. But fear, sadness, helplessness, feeling hurt, feeling unseen, feeling like you weren't enough, those got very different responses. Those got you told to toughen up, to stop being sensitive, to man up, to not let things affect you like that. And if you were lucky, you just got silence. Nobody acknowledged those feelings at all, which sent its own message loud and clear. We don't do that here. So over time, and this didn't happen overnight, this happened slowly across years and years of childhood and adolescence. You learn to route everything through anger. Every vulnerable emotion you felt got converted. Fear became anger. Sadness became anger. Embarrassment became anger. Feeling helplessness became anger. Feeling invisible became anger. Anger became the universal translator of every emotion you weren't allowed to speak directly. And here's the insidious part. It worked. It protected you. When you were angry, people backed off. When you were angry, you felt powerful instead of feeling powerless. When you were angry, you didn't have to feel the softer, scarier thing underneath it. Anger kept you safe. The problem is, you're not a kid anymore. You're a grown man. You have a wife and you have children who need to be able to reach you. And that defense mechanism that protected you when you were young is now the wall that's keeping out the people that you love most. When your wife tries to talk to you about something emotional and you shut down and get defensive? That's the guard dog doing its job. When your kid comes to you upset and you don't know what to do with it, so you default to fixing it or dismissing it, that's the guard dog doing its job. When something at work makes you feel small or out of control, and you come home and the first thing you do is snap at someone for no real reason, that's the guard dog doing its job. It's not protecting you from danger anymore. It's protecting you from connection. And that's the thing that's costing you everything. Let me give you the framework I use to think about this. Anger is almost always a secondary emotion. Something happens first. Something that touches a raw place. Something that activates a feeling that you don't have language for or permission to feel. And then anger shows up immediately after to cover it. The gap between the first emotion and anger is so fast that most men never notice it. They just feel angry. The work is learning how to slow that process down enough to see what's underneath. Not to get rid of the anger, not to suppress it or pretend it isn't there, but to get curious about it. To ask what just happened before that. What did that situation make me feel before the anger showed up? Because when you can answer that question honestly, two things happen. First, the anger loses some of its charge. You've acknowledged it, you're giving it somewhere to go. And second, you start to understand yourself in a way that most men never do. You start to see that the situations that trigger you most are almost always the ones that touch the same few vulnerable places. And once you see that pattern, you can start to work with it rather than being controlled by it. So here's the practice I want to give you. This isn't complicated, but this requires more honesty than most men are used to being with themselves. That's the work. The honesty is the work. The next time you feel anger rising, or the next time you look back on a moment where you reacted, I want you to ask yourself one question. What was I actually feeling right before that? Not what happened in the room. What happened inside you, in your chest, in your gut, in that place that most men have been ignoring for 20 to 30 years. Here are some words to help find this because most of us genuinely don't have the vocabulary for this. It might have been fear, the fear of failing, the fear of not being enough, fear of losing control of the situation. It might have been helplessness, that feeling of, I don't know what to do here, and I hate that feeling. It might have been embarrassment or shame. It might have been loneliness, that particular feeling of loneliness, of being surrounded by people who need you and feeling like nobody actually sees you. It might have been grief. It might have been exhaustion so deep that it started to feel like despair. Any of those land for you? Because here's what I've found. When I ask men this question, real men, men like you who are carrying this same weight, the answer is almost never anger. When they slow it down and get honest, it is almost always one of those things. Fear, helplessness, shame, loneliness. Those are the things your anger has been protecting. And those are the things that deserve your attention. I want to say one more thing before we get to going where I want to point you next. Getting honest about this stuff doesn't make you weak. I know the voice in the back of your head right now might be saying, this is soft. This is too much. Men don't do this. This voice is the same voice that has been running this show your whole life. That voice is why you're having the same argument with your wife that you had 3 years ago. That voice is why your kids are learning to manage your emotions instead of being able to just be kids around you. The strongest thing you can do is get honest, not with the world. Just start with yourself, just you, alone, asking yourself the real question. What am I actually feeling underneath this? That's where it starts. If this connected with you today, I want to point you somewhere specific. I have a free audio lesson in the description. It's called The Unspoken Rules You Absorbed. It's the first lesson in my course. and it goes deep on where exactly these patterns come from. The silent rules you grew up absorbing that are still running your emotional life today. It's free, it's audio. You can listen in your car, on a walk, or wherever you have a few minutes to yourself. That's where I'd start. And if you want to go deeper from there, the ebook, the full course, are all there when you're ready. Links are in the description. But right now, just go grab the free lesson. Take one step and leave me a comment and tell me if any of this landed. Tell me which emotion you think was hiding underneath your anger. You don't have to have this all figured out. Just start the conversation. I'll see you in the next one. Go grab the free audio lesson. Link is in the description. And go watch this one next.